Welcome to the Positive Thread podcast. I'm Heather McConaughey, registered nurse turned nutrition and mindset coach, podcast host, and inspirational speaker. I have a passion for empowering millennial women because, well, I'm the oldest of the millennials. Think of me like your big millennial sister, here to help you avoid all the mistakes that I made along the way and inspire you to dream big and achieve your goals. Every week, I'll bring you an interview, topic, or Q&A session that will inspire you to transform your body, mind, and soul so you can achieve your dreams and make a positive impact in the world. We believe that when women prioritize self-care, everyone wins. If that sounds good to you, you're in the right place. Are you ready? Let's start the show. Welcome to today's podcast. We're going to talk about a couple things. One is I want to teach you how to wrap up your year powerfully and how to be complete about things in life, because this year has been a doozy, right? Am I like 75? Who says the word doozy? Okay, apparently I do. I'm turning 40 in February, so I guess I can say like older people words now or something. But seriously, this year has been one for the books. There I go again. And I really want to give you some powerful tools for how to wrap up and complete your year and set a vision forward. I also want to announce that this is the last episode of the podcast in its current iteration. So what I mean by that is the Positive Thread podcast, as you know it, is going to be complete after this episode. It'll be our 127th episode, which is amazing to me that over 3 years I've recorded 127 episodes. I really started the podcast 3 years ago as a form of self-expression, and it became an opportunity for me to share some of my clients' stories and interview amazing people and teach the concepts that are essential to my philosophy and also to share personally what's going on in my life. That said, I feel internally that I am complete with the podcast in its current iteration. And I don't know about you, but I always like when people who are running businesses kind of like peel back the curtain a little bit and share with you why they're doing things that they're doing. So I hope to share a little bit of that with you today. Now, that said, I'm sure that I will be back with a new type of podcast at some point in the future. But one of the most important lessons that I've learned in business is focus. And this is a lesson that doesn't just apply to business, but it applies to every area of your life, including your fitness and your health. If you want to achieve something, it's really important to be focused. When you start a business, there are so many things that pull your attention that you think you should do and that you're not sure if you should or you shouldn't. And one of the things that I've learned is that there's a small percentage of activities that actually generate the revenue of a business. They generate your business being successful. And if you have a business or you want to have a successful business, you have to sell something. That is the definition of a business. Somebody else is exchanging money for your product or your service. And you have to have cash flow. You have to have sales for your business to work. Now, one of the things when you're first starting a business, you're learning what are the activities that I'm doing that are generating that output in the business. What are the things that are most valuable to the revenue in the business and growing the business? Ultimately, what should be most valuable is you reaching the people that you can help. For me, I'm most satisfied in my business when I am reaching and impacting the lives of people who are struggling with food and nutrition and not having the results they want. Like when I'm able to actually connect with those people and help them, I'm the most satisfied. So then the question becomes, how do you reach those people? And what are the most efficient ways for you to do that? Well, when I started my business, I thought maybe hosting a podcast would be a way for me to reach those people. Now, people podcast for a lot of reasons: creative self-expression, to expand their platform, to make money. You can see that I don't do any ads on my podcast, and I haven't for 3 years. And so I don't make any money from the podcast. The podcast actually costs me money in my business. And obviously I can write off expenses in my business, but it's not a revenue generator. And I thought maybe after 3 years, it would be something that would perhaps generate revenue in my business, or it would perhaps connect me to my ideal client, the people that I want to work with, the women I want to work with who are struggling with food and struggling with nutrition and want results. What I've discovered, though, is that my podcast is not really doing a good job of reaching those people. It's perhaps reaching a loyal audience who knows me and has been listening for the past couple years and enjoys the episodes and enjoys getting information, but it's not connecting me to those ideal clients. And I share this because I really hope that you can extrapolate this lesson to your own life. Where are you investing time and energy and perhaps money in something and actually not getting the result that you most want in your life? For me, I want to grow my business. I want to reach more people, and the growth has been slower than I'd like. I'd like to be more known and reach more people. And so I've actually been strategically thinking about what's a better way to do that than a podcast. And what I've discovered is that I actually love teaching and speaking to people, but that something that I think will help grow my business is actually connecting in person to people in local gyms where I live and actually getting to talk to people in person, which is funny because I have an online business, right? But one of the things about running an online business that I've learned is it can actually be difficult to find customers online. And sometimes the best place to find customers for your online business is offline and actually in person. And my business started with in-person clients from my gym, and I've met a lot of people in person who've become clients. So I'm changing strategies in 2021 because it really is the definition of insanity to keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So I'm going to ask you, how does this apply to your own life? What's an area of your life where you feel like you're investing time and energy and you're busy and you're trying to be productive and you're doing something, but you still don't have the result you want? Is it in your fitness and health? Are you running every day and like logging your food, but you're still not getting results? And you're like, what am I doing wrong? Why is it not working? Maybe it's with your finances. Are you investing in, your 401k at work, but like you actually have no idea what mutual funds you're invested in? You don't even know what a mutual fund is. You're not sure, what the expense ratio is of the fund. You don't even know what that is. And you're just kind of clueless and you're not sure what's actually happening with your accounts and your savings isn't growing. What are the areas of your life where you're not actually getting the result that you're seeking? And then you want to list the activities you're doing in that area. So for me, if I was looking at my business and I was looking at marketing, what are the things I'm doing? Well, podcast would be one, posting to Instagram, going live on Facebook, doing an in-person nutrition seminar, et cetera, et cetera. So once you list all those activities out, and for you, if it's say your fitness and health, it might be going online and reading articles, logging my food, going for runs, doing a yoga class once a week, write out all the things that you're doing. And then go through each item and actually see if you can connect that item to a result. How many results have you actually produced from that activity? Has it actually moved the needle? I know for me, for example, with my fitness, I was working out 2 hours a day. I was walking a bunch. I was eating pizza and ice cream. I was not logging my food. I was doing all these things. And what I discovered is the thing that actually was going to move the needle with my body was the nutrition part of things. That's actually what was going to produce the result. It was not the 2 hours at CrossFit. That was helpful. All right, that definitely made a difference in my physique, but actually the biggest difference maker was my nutrition. So it's the same with your business, for example. For me, listing out all those activities and getting clear, what's the biggest driver of new business in my business? It's not the podcast. And after doing it for 3 years and not seeing that return on investment, it makes sense to step away and reevaluate things, which is what I'm doing. Does this make sense to you? I hope this is helpful, and I hope that you can extrapolate what I'm saying, with the podcast into your own life. That said, I've absolutely loved hosting the podcast, and I appreciate so much that you've listened to the podcast over the past 3 years, that you've shared episodes, that they've made a difference for you, that you've written a review, that you've ranked me, that you've done anything like that. It's so appreciated, and it really has warmed my heart to read reviews or get comments from people about a podcast episode that's impacted you. Now, the podcast is not going anywhere. You can still listen to the entire archive of episodes. I'm not taking it off of my hosting service. So there just won't be new episodes, but it'll all be there for you to listen to, kind of like a 3-year season of your favorite show. I just started watching Schitt's Creek, and I think there's only 5 seasons, and I'm like kind of sad because I'm like, oh, when the seasons are up, it's done. But that's the nature of life, right? Like things come and go and then they end. And like I said earlier, I'm sure I will have a podcast again in the future. One of the interesting things that I learned, though, is that a podcast is often something that's best launched when you actually have a mega platform. So like when you already have like 500,000 followers or like 1 million people follow you, it can be really lucrative to then launch a podcast. But when you are first starting out in your business, launching a podcast is not necessarily going to move the needle the most in your business. So just a little tidbit that I learned. Now let's talk about how to wrap up our year powerfully and set our intention and vision for the future. So I always try to set goals at the beginning of the year, and last year I set some goals, and let's just say I don't think any of them got fulfilled, which is totally fine. I'm sure there were a few that I maybe moved the needle closer to, but in general, I did not achieve most of the goals that I had for myself. I think people are overly ambitious at the beginning of the year. I think they pick too many goals to focus on. And I think what's best is to pick 1 to 3 goals for your year. That's it. If you're on a health journey, maybe one of your goals is to lose 50 pounds. A pound a week is very reasonable. And that's the kind of goal that actually takes a year to achieve. If you're hoping to lose 20 pounds in 3 months and be done with it, well, girlfriend, gonna wake you up. It's gonna take you longer than that to achieve and maintain the results you want in a healthy way. So think about what are 1 to 3 goals that you want to achieve in 2021. I'd also really focus on picking goals that you have control over, because we've learned this year that there are so many things that you do not have control over in life. So for example, your fitness is something that you do have control over. Even though gyms are closed and I'm so annoyed about it right now, and I just want to bitch about it and complain, I'm I have the Peloton app, I can run outside, there's weights at my house, I can walk, I can hike, I actually can do a lot of things to stay in shape. There's free workouts on YouTube I can do in my room. So fitness is an example of something you do have control over. Your finances, that's something you have control over. Even during a pandemic, I've hit financial goals. So the pandemic is not an excuse to not achieve certain goals for yourself. So really think about what are those 1 to 3 goals that I want to achieve for myself in 2021 that would really make a difference. As you're wrapping up 2020, you can reflect on what did you achieve. Maybe you set some goals, but you didn't achieve them, but you probably achieved other things. For example, I didn't plan on moving back to Oregon and getting closer with my family this year. That wasn't on my list of to-dos, but it's something that happened. I also didn't set out to do a program with one of my good friends this spring, but the pandemic pushed me and Ashlyn together, my friend, and we launched a 8-week program called Survive to Thrive this spring for 30 plus women. And that wasn't something that I planned at the beginning of the year either. I also ended up making some really good friends in Kauai this year and just making new connections. I've also reconnected with old girlfriends from high school this year and just things that I didn't think I was going to achieve. I started Orange Theory. That wasn't on the list. So I want you to take some time to actually reflect on what did you achieve this year. Even if it wasn't your planned goals, don't perceive that as a failure. Instead, focus on what you did achieve. Maybe you set a weight loss goal and it didn't happen. It went out the window. Well, if that's so, what did you achieve in place of that? Maybe you got closer with your kids, or maybe you learned more about your spouse, or maybe you achieved something at work. I also like to think about what I learned this year, not just what I achieved. What were the big lessons of the past year? What did I learn about myself? What did I learn about other people? What did I learn about the world? What did I do really well, and what can I improve on? I feel like I did a really good job adapting to things. So constant adaptation, whether it was moving locations, whether it was changing my gym routine up constantly this year. I mean, literally started the year doing bar class, and then bar class closed on Kauai, and I was working out at my house in Kauai on the back porch using like an 8-pound set of dumbbells that I found in the garage at the house I was renting. Then I was doing online barre classes. Then I was working out at a hotel gym with my friends. Then I moved to Oregon and I was doing Orange Theory, and then gyms closed in Oregon and now I'm doing the Peloton app. I mean, it's just been like constant adaptation. And I feel like I've done that really well this year. I've moved, I've, really reflected on my life and what I want to do next. And I've gone through a lot of change and I've been very resilient. So that's some things that I've done well. What have I not done as well this year? Well, I think I let myself be too much at the effect of the pandemic this year, like the circumstance of it. I saw other people thriving and achieving their goals this year, and I think I fell into a little bit of a mindset of a victim of like, oh my God, this pandemic's happening and I'm at the effect of it and I can't change it. And like, I just need to sit and wait it out and things aren't happening in my life because of the pandemic. And like, I think I just fell back into that mindset that I didn't need to. And that's something that I think I could have done better. So ask yourself, what did you do well? What can you improve on as you wrap up your year? You can also reflect on who did you meet? Who are the new people in your life? And what did you learn from them? What are some of the beautiful memories that you had from your experiences with them? Like this year has actually been really like long, like in a lot of ways. But when I think back to the beginning of the year, I was like, wow, I had friends visiting me. I was traveling. There were some really cool things that happened at the beginning of the year before the pandemic. There were some friendships and amazing memories during the pandemic. Like there's these different phases to the year for me. Like kind of like if I divide it into thirds, there's like winter, spring, like summer, fall, winter kind of for me in the 3 phases that I felt in this year. So now you can take those lessons that you've learned and that reflection, and you can start to look forward. You can take the goals that you set for 2021, and you can also start to think about like, what kind of person do you want to be this year? What do you want to learn? What do you want to grow in? Who do you want to meet? Where do you want to travel? And yes, there's still uncertainty in our world about how many of those things we're going to do. I'm not going to plan like a music festival trip for myself this summer, although I really want to go to Taylor Swift's Love Fest whenever she relaunches that. But that's another thing to celebrate from this year. 2 new Taylor Swift albums, if you're a Taylor Swift fan. Hit me with some hearts or send me a message. But seriously, like some people were super productive during 2020. So think about where you want to be this next year, who you want to meet, and the type of person that you want to be. That wraps up our final episode of the Positive Thread podcast. Thank you again for listening to this episode. Thank you for listening over the past 3 years. I really appreciate it. If this podcast impacted you positively, feel free to reach out on Instagram, send me a message, let me know what was your favorite episode. I'd be really curious to hear. And stay tuned because I'm sure there will be another iteration of the podcast one day, something I share. And moving forward, the best place to connect with me is on Instagram at Heather McConaughey. I am on stories practically every day there and posting different things and videos. So that's a great place to come and learn from me. You can also follow me on Facebook at Heather McConaughey as well. And if there's anything that I can help you with, feel free to send me a message. You can also email me at heather@thepositivethread.com. Thanks again for listening. I'm wishing you a very happy New Year's, and let's make 2021 the year to remember, the year that we all recovered from 2020. And I hope you have an amazing holiday season and a great New Year. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you found this valuable, please take a screenshot of the episode, upload it to your Instagram stories, and tag me at Heather McConaughey with your takeaway. Also, if you love the podcast, please subscribe, rate the podcast, and leave a review. I read all the reviews and they mean so much to me.